Hang on a sec. Where's the sound? Ah.
If you can believe it, this is the second time I've done this review. The first time, the sound didn't work and I've got 50 minutes of footage with no sound, just me going... So, I've done the unboxing. That's what it looked like. It wasn't exciting. What was exciting, what was in the box, which is the Carisma Coyote SCA-1E 2.1. And it doesn't say it anywhere on the box, but this is actually version 2 or second generation or something. And in a way, I'm actually glad I get a second go at talking to you, because I realized after I'd done my filming and testing that what we have here is very nearly a Class 1 truck. It's a beautiful scale machine. The packet comes with a bunch of scale accessories. It's honestly not bad. The manual's very basic. There are some extra stickers you get as well. A very basic charger. What is it? 100 milliamp hour, so 1400 milliamp hour battery. But what's actually interesting is what's in the packet. There's like a little license plate. You got wipers, little brackets to get the bumpers up or down, and you even have a choice of bumpers. There's a rear bumper here, and there's a drop hitch somewhere in here for towing. That was cool. But what was nice is that you get a second option for a bumper. You'd remove that and bang this in instead. You can do the same for the front. You can get rid of this thing and stick this guy on with that license plate. So as far as this thing nearly being Class 1 ready, it honestly really is. The only thing I noticed was that this was a 110 mil tire, when I think your Class 1 restrictions are 105.9 or 4.19 inches. So you'd need to change the tires, but otherwise, this would actually probably go alright in a Class 1 competition. Now, if you're buying this car, you might actually be buying it for trail and light crawling use. The radio, I have moderately large hands. I can reach it, but only just. It's not comfortable. You could put some rubber over it, but it's still plastic and it still doesn't quite line up. But the plus side is this AVC controller. This was really cool. I did this yesterday, but you can adjust your throw, your endpoint, really well. So you turn all the way one way, and then you can adjust this dial and set exactly how far you want the endpoint to be. Release it, goes back. Do the other way, and again you can adjust the endpoint, so you can change the endpoint on the fly. There's a function button that doesn't do anything on this model, and just some basic trim and reversing buttons as well. 4 AA's, basic radio, but honestly not too bad, and a nifty handle that makes it easy to carry. Now the truck itself is quite an interesting little machine. We have 4-link suspension, and they're steel links front and rear. We just did the cheapest 110 scale review, and I've got a few more videos coming in that series. That was the Remo Hobby 10275. It also had 4 links and chassis mounted servo, which is what this has. But they've pulled this off in a way that the Remo didn't. You see, even when it's articulated especially, how close to parallel your steering and drag links are. They're really, really close. It doesn't seem to affect the steering too badly, although there is some movement. You see how when we steer it, see how the axle moves left and right? It has the opposite effect when you're on the rocks and you steer. It makes the body move across first before it actually steers the wheels. It's not optimal, but it gets you into Class 1 if you want to go that way. It doesn't weigh a heck of a lot. It's a fairly light machine at 2.4 kilos, despite having steel all the way through, including telescoping steel drive shafts and CVD's constant velocity drive joints, which is nice to see. So as far as needing to upgrade, you probably won't. I popped the diff cover off yesterday and found that was full of a nice sticky grease, and there's steel with bearings throughout. Straight axles, no portals here. So one thing that you will probably find a challenge with these 110mm tires and straight axles is your breakover angle isn't fabulous. But for a scale machine, articulation is very good. That's not too bad. And it goes okay. There's actually not a lot on the internet about this thing, which is interesting given this isn't an expensive machine as far as a big name goes. This is painted on the outside. It's got a matte paint finish. The polycarbonate is unpainted. I think it's a cool idea. You could spray this like a rust orange, so that as this paint scratches on the outside, you get rust streaks. That's a good idea, right? These stickers on it and the little plastic pieces finish it nicely. The windows are painted, unfortunately, so there'll be some modifying, but it might be easier to get the paint off the outside than the inside. I'm actually not sure. Haven't done it before. There are 5mm LED light buckets, 2 for the front, 2 for the back. They don't come populated, but you could. You can't populate the indicator and reverse lights though. They've melted the plastic in. That's how it secures. So you're only going to get red tail lights and white headlights, but it's actually not too bad. So that's the body. Doesn't weigh much. You can bolt that other little bumper in the front. I like it. I've replaced the stock plug, which was one of these guys, with my plug of choice, the XT60. It's the ARC-1 ESC. It's a little ESC physically and also small in power. It's 40 amps rated forward and 20 amps rated in reverse. You really want most of your power going forward most of the time anyway. There's a radio box in here that was apparently waterproof, but yesterday I pulled this old glob of cracking old hard silicon out, and there's a gap here as well. This car's only been out for I think 16, 17 months. This one can't have been made much longer ago than that, and it's been in a sealed box since then. I don't know why, but the box isn't water resistant anymore, so you need to just go over that. Check yours if you get one. There's a cover on the transmission. It's a fairly straightforward transmission with one nice trick. It's got the anti-torque twist gearing, so you've got opposing outdrives front and rear, which removes that torque twist, where previously both the shafts were spinning that way. It'd make it kind of squat down in the back, and under real torque sometimes they'll lift a wheel as they're trying to go forward. Having opposing shafts means that effect is largely cancelled out, so that's really good. We've got steel C chassis, plastic or like fibre in, yeah, well it's plastic cross bars, which is good because you want less weight up high. So I like the chassis. The motor is interesting. It's a 17 turn 5-pole 540. It's a smoother motor. It's got less punch, but it is smooth. It also is equivalent to something like a 45-ish turn 3-pole. Not a bad choice for a motor. Certainly it's lovely and quiet, and it should be easy on the juice. Rounding out the electronics is a Carisma 9 kilo servo, metal gear, waterproof. It's not bad. It suits the wheels, it suits the whole model's weight. The electronics are appropriate to the machine. There are these little washers, plastic spacers I guess, just to let the body sit nicely without vibrating, and it just distributes some of the force. But just be aware they're loose, so you can lose them. Oil-filled shocks, plastic with aluminium caps, and there are spacers underneath too that limit the articulation. You could remove those if you wanted it to go further. I might do that. It came dialed right down with the body height forced up, but I like it a bit softer, and I backed them right off completely, and it sits nicely now. So the sliders aren't bad either. The only plastic issue I found, well, not an issue, any design shortcoming was there are these big notchy gaps in the skid plate. Would have been better if they could have been filled. They're certainly strong, but it's just a little ledges for rocks to get hung up on. So smooth would have been better. Just an observation. Stainless ball ends in all of the links as well, I noticed. We've got plastic beadlock wheels. They're vented, there are soft foams, and the tires are reasonably nice. I can give you a damage report up front because I've already done my test. They're smooth underneath the diffs, and you've got 4 little screws that pop the front out to give you access to the steel internals. It's a nicely thought out machine. It's basic. Its performance is just, you can see it's not going to be as good as some of the big names out of the box, largely on account of these smaller wheels, less clearance, and the funny 4-link setup. But despite those potential drawbacks, it's actually really nice to drive. Radio's comfortable in the hand. It's beautiful and quiet and smooth. Oh, 48 dot pitch gearing as well. So it's just, everything about this thing is just smooth. It's a vehicle that's about smoothness. Let's get it onto the 6 problem course and see how it crawls. Remember, it's a Class 1-esque machine, so we don't expect the world from this thing, but we do want to see just how well it goes. Let's take a look.
Straight into problem 1, and you'll see the drag brake. I don't know if that's adjustable honestly, but it rolls back somewhat easily. The traction and softness of these tyres is enough to help this thing get up even when it's scraped a little bit over the rocks, so that was a good thing. You'll see also the suspension here, now that we're up the top, is compressed nicely and there's plenty of clearance. I'm explaining here, back when we had sound, that steering can make the chassis move back and forth over the axle before you actually get steering. Not a big deal. This truck has actually surprisingly unexpectedly good steering given its 4-link and chassis mounted servo, just something to be aware of. Lovely and smooth. The drag brake going forward is actually quite okay. It seems to be better than when it rolled back, so that could be a function of the higher current capability. That's 40 amps forward and 20 amps back from the little Carisma ARC-1 ESC. Anyway, problem 1 was done tidily. Now this is quite a steep and challenging problem, and I suspect our breakover angle, limited as it is by the straight axles and small diameter tyres, will be the main thing that gets in the way of the Carisma finishing this problem. If it can do it, it'll be down to the sticky tyres. Now it's a 17 turn 5-pole 540, and yet somehow this thing is still a little too fast. I would have liked a little more control, honestly. I did find that was a problem when I was doing my test. But the tyres do cover a lot of other shortcomings, and look at that, it grips and... Gee, doesn't that look good, eh? There's something about seeing articulation. It's quite an attractive vehicle. I really do see potential with this thing as a Class 1 rig, honestly. That's problem 2. Done, neat and tidy. And again, the front drag brake is nice. That's problem 2 in the bag. Now, I didn't expect it could do problem 2. Problem 3 is especially going to be challenging. That breakover angle and also the clearance from the rear is going to be really what holds this thing back. There's a hole where the back right tyre is sitting. For the vehicle to get up over the entry to problem 3 here, the fronts either need to pull the thing forward or the rear right needs to be tall enough to allow the tyres to get traction on the rock without the body dragging. It's not a bad departure angle given this is a pickup truck style, but it's bad enough that we're still dragging. That's what I'm pointing to now. And in fact, reversing, the body actually bent. It's not that clear in this picture, unfortunately, but the body bent down right over the wheels. It did actually kind of give a useful something of a dig type effect, because I could use the front to reverse and steer at the same time to pull the nose across. The falling suspension, again with the chassis mounted servo, meaning the axles, making the body move before the wheels would steer too much, and that's what I was pointing to. Now we're on our side. I found a couple of times when this thing rolled it couldn't self-right. Now problem 4 is an interesting one. It tests breakover vehicles. It doesn't matter whether you have long wheelbase or short wheelbase, there will be rocks coming up that will stop most trucks. Notice the Carisma got up just fine on that entry rock. Traction is actually quite good, and I do like these tyres. But I'm starting to see on this test that some weight down low will really help with further traction. Now the two rocks in a row here with the high ridge, where we're just pointing to here, most vehicles will high point. Doesn't matter how short your short wheelbase is. So then it becomes a question of how far down can you drop a wheel to get some traction, because you just need some, you don't need all 4 wheels with contact. But this problem really tests, especially on the rock that we're just coming off now, it really tests how well a rig can keep contact and get forward momentum, even with just 1 or 2 wheels with traction. So then how well your skid plate slides over grippy parts of rock is a question as well. And remember, the skid plate underneath this one has a couple of ledges, possibly an unwise or at least suboptimal design. You can see we're crab walking the thing sideways. We did actually get a little bit of forward momentum here, and I think if we tried this problem over and over and over, we'd probably be able to do it, but it's not going to be something that can be easily replicated. And so at this point, I think we'll just call problem 4 not passable. On to problem 5. The entry to problem 5, these 2 consecutive rocks cause trouble to many rigs, and they tend to get all twisted up and then fall off to the side. Despite the straight axles and the smaller diameter tyres, the Coyote just walked over that, didn't it? It was quite good. The small diameter tyres here though, working against it, where the bumper just keeps pressing into the rock. You need to find a little path forward where the tyre can lift the front up high enough so that you can clear on a steep entry like that. We found our entry point and got the car up and onto it. Now there's a puddle of water here that probably won't help things. Now the front left is wet. From what I've seen with these tyres, they're gripping okay even with the dampness from the grass, or the oxalis that's all around. And I don't know that clearance is an issue here, but traction certainly seems to be. Now, the truck has a lot going for it, and I think for a problem like this, the biggest benefit you'd reap would be from adding some weight, because you just need to be able to press that rubber into the rock a little bit better. It's getting there, but I don't know that we're going to get there, especially not now that we've got the front left up in the air. The angle's just not great. You do need decent breakover to be further across to the left, because there's this kind of ridge that runs up that rock, so you need to be down, hanging on an uncomfortable angle down to the right like we are when you haven't got the clearance on this problem, I find. And we just didn't have the traction to grab it. Just where it's pointing to now, you can't really be any further left or the diffs will scrape at the point right in front of the diffs. Yeah, it's just not going to happen with problem 5, unfortunately. Now I also don't think we're going to get problem 6 out, but I'm interested to give it a shot at least. Let's just see how far we can get. The first part of problem 6 being no problem at all, but then we come to the hole where that back left wheel keeps falling into. As often happens on this problem, the rear bumper catches on the rock behind the hole there, and the challenge is to get those front wheels up over the crest of the rock, which is what we're trying to do, while at the same time, yeah, we nearly got there then, while at the same time the wheels are still stuck in the hole at the back, and sometimes while the body scrapes along behind it too. The geometry is sometimes perfect for rigs, but in this case it's just not happening. I've tried a few lines to the left and right. I've tried an angle here. It just doesn't seem to want to go. Oh, look at that, it got very close. It's possible that having weight down low would have helped, but let's just see if we did get the wheels up past that hole. At this point, does it have the brake over to do it? It may. Certainly the tyres are nice and sticky. Yep, look at that, straight up. Interesting.
I'm actually not too disappointed that this could only do problem 1. My class 1 vehicles would be about the same, quite honestly. We're only a few mil off class 1 size tyres, and for out of the box performance, it's not too bad. This was also a cheaper machine. I paid $430 Australian. That puts us about 15-20% more expensive than the RGT Pioneer. Now the Pioneer runs rings around this thing in performance, but this thing has a smoothness to it and a quality finish to it that the RGT doesn't match. The whole thing weighs less than the Pioneer, which is the closest comparison, honestly. And I think with a little bit of modification, maybe some weight down low, we could increase the traction. Now you could put bigger tires on, you could lift the body a little bit, it wouldn't make much difference because it doesn't weigh much. And you could start to get some bigger performance. We might look at doing that. You could also drop this for slightly smaller tires on weighted wheels, and you'd have something of a weapon for a class 1 comp truck. Throw the mirrors on, make sure you get the wipers so that you got all the bits and pieces you need for those scale points. You could put some stuff on this fake back, you could also put the lights in. All of this wouldn't really add much to its weight. And as far as performance goes, for a class 1 type machine, it's up there. It's not a bad rig. I'll do a bit more with this thing in the future. We'll do some comparisons and look more deeply into performance options. For now, I'm actually going to enjoy this for a little bit and get to know it some more. I'm confident that it's going to be a reliable runner. I just need to waterproof that receiver box, and then we might just have some fun with it for a while, and I'll come back to you in future and we'll see what we think of this thing. Thanks to those of you who recommended it in the past. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to it. We've got a lot coming up. Subscribe if you haven't, throw me a like for this if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time on RC-TNT. Thanks for watching.